You ended it. You packed the memories into a box, you deleted the photos, or at least moved them to a folder you pretend doesn't exist. You had the conversation with your best friend where you said, "I'm done. I am completely done. This is the last time." And you meant it. You genuinely, absolutely meant every single word. And then 6 months later, maybe a year, maybe 2 weeks, we don't judge here. You found yourself sitting across from someone new. New face, new voice, new city maybe, new everything. But somehow it felt exactly the same. Same arguments, same distance, same feeling. The same arguments that start over nothing and escalate into everything. The same hot and cold, the same lying awake at 2 a.m. passing a text message, trying to figure out if they're pulling away or if you're just being paranoid. The same feeling of chasing someone who never quite lets you fully arrive. And you thought to yourself, maybe you even said it out loud, why does this keep happening to me? Why does this keep happening to me? If you have ever asked that question, this video is for you. And I need you to stay with me for the next 20 minutes because I'm going to answer that question in a way that most people never get answered. Not by their therapists, not by their friends, not by the stack of self-help books sitting on their nightstand. I'm going to answer it with psychology, with neuroscience, with the actual mechanics of why this happens. And more importantly, I'm going to tell you what you can actually do about it. You are not broken. You are patterned. There is a profound difference between those two things. And by the time this video ends, you will understand exactly what that difference is and why it matters for your entire future. Why you attract the same people again and again. Psychology explained. I want to start with something that is going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. And I want to ask you in advance to sit with the discomfort rather than reject it, because the discomfort is where the insight lives. Here it is. The problem is not always them. Now, I know what your instinct is right now. Your instinct is to think about the specific person who came to mind when this video started playing, and to compile the list of reasons why it is, in fact, entirely their fault. And some of those reasons are probably valid. Some of those people were genuinely not good for you. But here is the deeper question, and this is the question that changes everything. Why did you choose them? Why did they feel right at the beginning? Why did you override your instincts? Or maybe your instincts didn't even fire. Why, out of all the people who were available to you, did your attention, your energy, your heart keep landing on that type? Because that is where the real answer lives. Psychologists have identified something called the familiarity bias, and it is one of the most important and least discussed concepts in all of relational psychology. Here is the core principle, and I want you to hold it in your mind like a key because it opens every door we're going to walk through today. We don't attract what we want, we attract what feels familiar. Read that again, absorb it, because it sounds simple, but it is staggeringly complex in practice. Your brain, this extraordinary 3-pound organ that runs every system in your body and processes 11 million bits of information per second, is, at its core, a prediction machine, a pattern recognition machine. From the moment you were born, your brain began cataloging information about the world. About safety, about danger, about love. It observed how the adults around you interacted with each other. It tracked how they responded to you, to your tears, your hunger, your laughter, your fear. It noted whether warmth was abundant or rationed, whether love was expressed through presence or through absence, whether your needs were met with reliability or with unpredictability. And from all of this information, gathered over years before you had a single sophisticated thought, your brain built a template, a working model of what love is, of what relationships feel like, of what intimacy looks and sounds like in practice. Your brain built a template for love before you were old enough to question it. And here's the devastating twist. That template was not built by you, the thoughtful, conscious adult standing here today. That template was built by a child who didn't have the cognitive tools to evaluate whether what they were experiencing was healthy or unhealthy. A child who didn't know that other households operated differently. A child who simply absorbed their environment and concluded, this is what love is, this is what it feels like, this is what I should expect. And that template, that early unexamined blueprint, is the filter through which you experience attraction as an adult. So when you meet someone who matches that old template, when their energy, their emotional style, their particular blend of warmth and withholding resonates with something deep in your nervous system, your brain doesn't say, this is a healthy match. It says, this feels familiar. And familiar to the brain feels like home. Familiar doesn't mean healthy, it means recognized. This is why you can meet someone who is, on paper, everything you've ever said you wanted. Kind, consistent, communicative, genuinely interested in you, and feel underwhelmed. Not because they're wrong for you, but because they don't match the template. They don't activate the old pattern. And without that activation, the brain doesn't register the thrill it has come to associate with attraction. And then, 2 weeks later, you meet someone who is emotionally unavailable, who runs hot and cold, who keeps you guessing about whether they actually want you. And you feel electricity. Stable feels boring. Chaos feels like chemistry. That's the trap. That electricity is not compatibility, it is recognition. Your nervous system is not saying, this is the one. Your nervous system is saying, this is the pattern I know. This is the pattern I have practice with. This feels like home. And until you understand this distinction, until you can feel it in your body and name it in real time, you will keep walking toward the electricity and away from the stability every time. But there's a reason this template is so deeply grooved, a reason it operates so far below conscious thought. And to understand that reason, we need to go back, much further back than your last relationship. We need to go back to the very beginning. In the late 1960s, British psychiatrist and psychoanalyst John Bowlby published a trilogy of works that would permanently alter how we understand human relationships. He called his framework attachment theory, and in the decades since, it has become one of the most empirically supported theories in all of psychology. The central idea is both simple and profound. How your earliest caregiver responded to you shaped how you experience all relationships. The way your primary caregiver, usually a parent but not always, responded to your needs in your earliest years created a set of expectations about what relationships are like, about whether other people are trustworthy, about whether you are worth being loved. And those expectations, those deeply buried pre-verbal body-level beliefs, don't stay in childhood. They come with you into every friendship, every workplace, every romantic relationship you ever have. Bowlby called this the internal working model, a mental representation of yourself, of others, and of relationships that was formed before you could speak, and that runs in the background of every interaction you've had since. Now, psychologist Mary Ainsworth, working alongside Bowlby, ran a series of elegant experiments in the 1970s, most famously the Strange Situation Study, where she observed how infants responded when briefly separated from and then reunited with their caregiver. What she found revealed 4 distinct patterns of attachment, and when researchers followed these children into adulthood, the same 4 patterns showed up decades later in their romantic relationships. Let me walk you through all 4, and I want you to do something as you listen. I want you to be ruthlessly honest with yourself about which one resonates. Not the one you wish you were, the one that actually matches your behavior, because your behavior tells a far more accurate story than your self-image. Attachment style 1, secure. If your caregiver was consistently warm, responsive, and attuned, not perfect, but reliably present, you likely developed what's called a secure attachment style. And what does that look like in adult relationships? Securely attached people are generally comfortable with both intimacy and independence. They can be close without feeling smothered. They can give their partner space without spiraling into anxiety about what that space means. When conflict arises, they can navigate it without catastrophizing. They can say, I'm feeling hurt, without either shutting down or exploding. They have a fundamental, quiet background confidence that they are lovable, and that their partner is basically trustworthy. Approximately half the adult population operates from secure attachment, which means the other half, roughly, do not. And it is from those other styles that the patterns we're talking about today are born. Attachment style 2, anxious, also called preoccupied. Now this is where it gets painful, and I'm going to ask you to stay with it. If your caregiver was inconsistently available, sometimes warm and present, other times emotionally absent, distracted, or simply unpredictable, You may have developed an anxious attachment style. Think about what that inconsistency teaches a child. When love is predictable, a child can relax. When love is consistent, a child learns, I am safe. My needs will be met. I can trust. But when love is inconsistent, when some days your mother is warm and engaged, and other days she's cold or overwhelmed or simply not there emotionally, a child cannot relax. The child's nervous system stays on alert, hypervigilant, always scanning for signs of withdrawal, always trying to read the emotional weather. And the child develops a strategy. Work harder for the love. Be more charming, more helpful, more good. Don't take up too much space, but don't disappear either. Stay visible, stay needed. Because the love might disappear and you need to be ready to fight for it. As an adult, this becomes an anxious attachment pattern that is immediately recognizable. You need reassurance constantly. Not because you're insecure in a surface way, but because your nervous system learned that security is temporary and can be withdrawn at any moment. So you check, you monitor, you analyze, you read every text message twice. You notice when your partner takes longer than usual to respond, and your brain immediately begins constructing disaster scenarios. You apologize, even when you've done nothing wrong. Because at some level, you believe that conflict is dangerous, that if you displease your partner, they might withdraw. And so it's safer to accept fault than to risk their rejection. You feel too much, too quickly. You fall deeply, intensely, immediately. And people who don't share that intensity can find it overwhelming. And here's the piece that drives the pattern we're exploring today. Anxious attachment is drawn like a magnet to avoidant attachment. The person who is most activating to an anxiously attached person is the person who is not quite there. The person who keeps them working, hoping, trying, because that dynamic, that feeling of needing to earn the love, feels exactly like home. Attachment style 3. Avoidant, also called dismissing. If your caregiver was consistently emotionally unavailable, not necessarily cruel but distant, rejecting of emotional expression, critical of neediness, perhaps a parent who responded to your tears with impatience, who valued independence above all else, who made you feel that your emotional needs were a burden, you may have developed an avoidant attachment style. Here's what the child learns in that environment. My needs are not welcome here. Asking for emotional support leads to rejection or criticism. The safest strategy is to not need. And so the child, brilliantly, as children always do, adapts. They suppress the needs. They learn to self-soothe. They stop looking outward for emotional regulation and start doing it entirely internally. And they become, in many ways, extraordinarily self-sufficient. As an adult, the avoidantly attached person values their independence to a degree that can feel threatening to partners, needs significant amounts of alone time to feel balanced, becomes deeply uncomfortable, physically uncomfortable, when intimacy exceeds a certain threshold. When a relationship starts to get close, there is a biological pull to create distance, to pick a fight over something small, to suddenly find fault with the partner, to become busy, to disappear. They are often described by partners as emotionally unavailable, commitment phobic, hard to reach. And they will often agree, not in a defensive way, but genuinely, I just don't feel things the way other people do. What's actually happening is that their emotional system learned to shut down as a protective strategy. And that shutdown is so deeply practiced that many avoidantly attached people genuinely cannot access their own emotional states without significant therapeutic support. Avoidant attachment = I don't need you. The wound, I needed you and learned not to. Attachment style 4. Fearful avoidant, also called disorganized. This is the most complex and, in many ways, the most painful of the 4 styles, and I want to discuss it with the care it deserves. Fearful avoidant attachment typically develops in environments where the caregiver was not just unavailable, but frightening, where trauma, abuse, severe neglect, or profound emotional chaos was present. The child is caught in what researchers call an irresolvable paradox. The person you are biologically wired to run toward for safety, your caregiver, is also the person you need to run away from to be safe. There is no safe direction, and the nervous system, unable to find a consistent strategy, develops one that is disorganized. oscillating, unpredictable, confused. As an adult, the fearful avoidant person simultaneously craves deep intimacy. They want to be known, to be loved, to be close, and is terrified of it. They push people away and then panic when the distance becomes real. They say, "I love you," and then find a reason to blow up the relationship. They test partners relentlessly, not from cruelty, but from a desperate, unconscious need to know. Are you really safe, or are you going to hurt me like the others did? These are the relationships that can feel most intense of all, most magnetic, most confusing, because they combine the most desperate hunger for love with the most ferocious protection against it. Now, I want to bring these styles together, because this is where the pattern you're living starts to make devastating sense. Anxious plus avoidant equal sign. The most common painful relationship dynamic in the world. Anxious attachment and avoidant attachment are functionally opposites, and they are powerfully attracted to each other. Here is why. The anxiously attached person experiences the avoidant partner's independence, emotional restraint, and hard-to-reach quality as thrilling. It activates their system. It says, work for this, chase this, earn this. And that activation, that feeling of needing to win someone, is exactly what their nervous system has been primed to experience as love. The avoidantly attached person experiences the anxious partner's warmth, intensity, and emotional expressiveness as deeply appealing. At first, it feels like feeling. For someone who has spent a lifetime not feeling deeply, it is intoxicating. But the moment the relationship deepens, the moment the anxious partner's needs become more visible, the avoidance system triggers its withdrawal mechanism. They need space, they pull back, which causes the anxious partner's abandonment alarm to fire. They pursue, they text more, they try harder, they need more reassurance, which makes the avoidant feel more suffocated, which makes them pull back more, which triggers the anxious partner's worst fears, which makes them pursue with more urgency, round and round and round. It's not love, it's a trauma pattern performing love. Neither person is bad. Neither person is doing this consciously or maliciously. They are both simply running the program that was installed in them before they were old enough to understand what a program even was. And until that program is examined, until the underlying attachment wound is addressed, this dance will continue. With this person, or with the next version of this person, or the one after that. I want to tell you about one of Sigmund Freud's most unsettling observations. Now, I know that for many of you, Freud is a controversial figure. Some of his theories have not stood the test of time, but this particular observation, made in 1920 in a work called Beyond the Pleasure Principle, has been validated, refined, and expanded by decades of subsequent neuroscientific research. So let's separate the idea from the man. Freud noticed that his patients didn't just remember their painful experiences from childhood. They reenacted them. They unconsciously recreated the same painful scenarios over and over in their adult lives. He called this the repetition compulsion. The psyche doesn't just remember painful experiences, it recreates them. And here's the question that haunted him. Why? Why would a rational organism repeatedly walk back into pain? His answer was as elegant as it was heartbreaking. The psyche, the unconscious mind, returns to unresolved painful experiences because it is trying desperately to resolve them. The unconscious returns to the wound because it believes it can heal it this time. Think of it this way. An unresolved emotional experience is like a story with no ending, a circuit with no completion, a question hanging in the air, unanswered, and the mind, particularly the unconscious mind, has an almost compulsive need to close open circuits. So it keeps finding scenarios that rhyme with the original wound. And in each new scenario, there is an unconscious hope, a wordless, body-level hope. This time I'll get it right. This time I'll be enough. This time they won't leave. This time I'll finally get the love I needed. But here is the tragedy embedded in this mechanism. The person in front of you, this new partner, this new version of the familiar pattern, cannot heal the original wound. You cannot heal a childhood wound through a romantic relationship. The wound needs a different medicine, because the original wound was not made by them. It was made somewhere else, in a different time, with different people. People who are no longer accessible, or who are no longer the same people they were. And no matter how much love this new person gives you, or how much love you give them, it will never reach the actual wound. Because the wound is inside you, and it is waiting for something that another person, however devoted, cannot fully deliver. The healing that comes from within, through grief, through therapy, through self-reparenting, through the slow, difficult work of learning that you are, in fact, enough. Modern trauma therapist Pete Walker talks about this in the context of what he calls the inner child wound, the part of you that is still waiting, still hoping, still doing everything it knows how to do to finally get the love it needed and didn't receive. That part of you isn't pathological. It isn't broken, it is loyal, achingly, stubbornly, heartbreakingly loyal to the hope that the love is still coming. But it is also tragically stuck, looking for what it needs in places it can never be found. Here is a phrase I want you to keep. It comes from trauma-informed therapy circles, and it captures this dynamic in 6 words. If it's hysterical, it's historical. If your emotional response to something in a current relationship feels disproportionate, if a small slight from a partner sends you into a spiral of terror, if being temporarily ignored feels like annihilation, if conflict triggers a level of fear or rage that does not quite match the situation, that intensity is data. It is a signal that the current situation has activated something older, something that predates this relationship entirely. The emotion you are feeling is not just about this moment. It is a door that opens into the original wound. And recognizing that, in the moment or even in hindsight, is one of the most powerful steps in breaking the cycle. Because once you can say, I am not actually terrified that this person doesn't care about me. I am terrified because I am 5 years old again, and I cannot find my mother, and I do not know if I am safe. Once you can locate the original experience behind the current emotion, you gain a choice. A small one at first, but a choice. And choice is the beginning of freedom. Awareness of the pattern is the first crack in it. Let me now introduce you to a concept that will help you understand the full scope of the template we have been discussing. In the 1960s, psychologist John Money, later expanded significantly by the renowned relationship researcher Dr. John Gottman, introduced the concept of the love map. Your love map is, essentially, the complete interior atlas of what love looks and feels like to you. It is the accumulated, integrated record of every experience, observation, message, and moment that has shaped your understanding of relationships. And it is built from more sources than most people realize. Your love map is built from the relationship your parents or caregivers modeled for each other, the way love was expressed or withheld in your home, every significant loss, rejection, or abandonment you have experienced, every moment of profound connection or safety you have experienced, cultural, religious, and community messaging about love and partnership, the films, stories, songs, and role models you absorbed in your formative years, your early romantic experiences, including first love, first heartbreak. Now here is the critical detail about the love map. The thing that makes it both extraordinarily powerful and extraordinarily difficult to consciously override. Your love map operates below conscious thought. It speaks in feelings, not words. It does not live in your thinking mind. It lives in your body, in your gut instincts, in what you experience as attraction, chemistry, resonance. When you meet someone and feel a magnetic pull, that pull is not random. It is your love map recognizing a match. It is your internal atlas saying, this person's emotional style, their energy, their way of engaging, this fits the template I have been carrying. This is why intellectual knowledge about what is healthy is often not enough to change who we are attracted to. You can know with absolute certainty that an emotionally unavailable person is not right for you. You can have read every book on the topic, attended every workshop, talked about it for years in therapy, and then that emotionally unavailable person walks in and your stomach drops, and everything you know intellectually evaporates in the face of what you feel. Because the love map is not accessible to the intellect alone. It speaks a language that is older than thought. The good news, and I want to be genuinely encouraging here, is that love maps are not fixed. They are not destiny. Neuroscience has demonstrated something extraordinary. The adult brain retains a remarkable degree of neuroplasticity, the ability to form new neural pathways, to revise old patterns, to update its operating model. Your love map was written once. It can be revised. It is slow work. It requires consistent, intentional effort. It often requires professional support, but the revision is absolutely possible. People do it every day. People who grew up in the most chaotic, damaging relational environments go on to build genuinely loving, secure partnerships, not by willing themselves to feel differently, but by doing the deeper work of updating the template itself. And we're going to talk about exactly how to do that. But first, one more mechanism, one that is perhaps the most quietly powerful of all. I want to ask you a question, and I want you to answer it honestly. Not the answer you would give to someone else, but the one that quietly lives underneath everything. Deep down, beneath the confident exterior, beneath the capable professional, beneath the person who knows their worth, do you really believe you deserve to be loved, consistently, unreservedly, without having to earn it, perform for it, manage for it, or fight for it? For many people, the honest answer is complicated. And that complication, that ambivalence about our own worthiness, is one of the most powerful engines driving repetitive relationship patterns. Here is the psychology behind it. In 1983, psychologist William Swan at the University of Texas developed self-verification theory, and its findings are, at first glance, baffling. Then they become heartbreaking. Then they become liberating. Swan's research found that human beings are not simply seeking positive feedback in their relationships. They are seeking consistent feedback. They are seeking interactions that confirm their existing self-concept, even when that self-concept is negative. We seek relationships that confirm what we already believe about ourselves, even when it's painful. Let me make that concrete. If you carry a deep background belief that you are fundamentally not quite enough, not quite lovable enough, not quite worthy of complete, consistent devotion, then a partner who treats you with consistent, unconditional love will feel, on some level, wrong, threatening, like a mistake that is about to be corrected. And without any conscious intention, you may begin to test that partner, to look for the cracks, to expect the withdrawal, to perhaps manufacture the very conflict that proves your internal belief right. Not because you are self-destructive, but because your self-concept requires verification, and the brain will work hard, unconsciously, automatically, to ensure the world matches the internal story. Conversely, a partner who withholds love, who is inconsistent, who requires you to work and earn and perform, that partner, paradoxically, can feel safer. Not because they treat you better, but because they confirm the internal narrative. Love is conditional. I have to work for it. That is how this works. The partner who confirms your wound feels safer than the partner who challenges it. I want to sit with that for a moment because it is important. The person who is genuinely good to you, who offers stable, consistent, generous love, can actually trigger your alarm system. Not because they are wrong for you, but because being treated well contradicts a deeply held internal story. And the alarm says, this doesn't fit. This doesn't feel right. Something must be off. This is why some people, when they find themselves in genuinely healthy relationships, begin to feel restless, bored, critical of their partner in ways they can't quite justify. They may tell their friends, there's just no spark. And what they mean, though they don't have the language for it yet, is, this doesn't activate my pattern. This doesn't feel like home. But here is the reframe. And this is possibly the most important thing I say in this entire video. Stable, consistent love doesn't feel like home yet. That yet is everything. The sense of safety, of ease, of reliability, it can be learned. Your nervous system can, with time and intention and support, begin to expand its definition of what love feels like, to include warmth without drama, to recognize stability as desirable rather than dull. The work is to stay, to resist the pull toward the familiar, when the familiar is harmful, and to slowly, intentionally build a new normal. I want to spend a few minutes on the brain science, because for those of you who, like me, need to understand the mechanism to fully accept the concept, this will make everything click. Every time you experience a particular type of emotional interaction, a particular sequence of neurons fires in your brain. And as neuroscientist Donald Hebb articulated in 1949, neurons that fire together wire together. The more frequently a neural pathway is activated, the more efficient it becomes. the more it becomes the brain's default route, the more it becomes what feels normal. So if you grew up in an environment where love came wrapped in anxiety, where you never knew if warmth was coming or withdrawal, your brain built a neural pathway that literally links love with anxiety. They are stored together. They fire together. As an adult, when you experience a relationship without that anxiety, when it is calm, consistent, low drama, it does not activate that pathway. And the brain, for whom the absence of a familiar pathway feels like something is missing, says, this doesn't feel like love. Now add to this the mechanism of intermittent reinforcement. In behavioral psychology, intermittent reinforcement, where rewards are given unpredictably, not consistently, is known to produce the strongest and most resistant to extinction behavioral responses. This was first demonstrated in rats by B.F. Skinner. Rats that receive food rewards unpredictably would press a lever with far more persistence and far more desperation than rats that receive food consistently. You are not a rat. But your dopamine system operates on similar principles. Hot and cold, available and gone, this is intermittent reinforcement, and it is chemically addictive. When a partner is warm and loving sometimes, and cold, distant, or unavailable at other times, the uncertainty itself becomes a driver of craving. Your brain is perpetually waiting for the next reward signal. And in that waiting, it produces dopamine, not the warm, sustained dopamine of a consistently loving relationship, but the desperate edge-of-your-seat dopamine of someone checking their phone every 45 seconds. This is why the people who treat you unpredictably can feel more compelling than the people who treat you consistently well. It is not a character flaw. It is not weakness. It is neurochemistry. Understanding this doesn't change it immediately, but it helps you stop blaming yourself for it. And the first step toward change is always understanding. All right, we have done the deep work. You now have the map. You understand the mechanisms. And I want to be clear about something before we discuss solutions. There is no hack for this. There is no 30-day program, no morning routine, no affirmation set that will, on its own, rewire patterns that were built over years of lived experience. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. But there is real evidence-based guidance on what actually moves the needle, on what genuinely, over time, shifts these patterns. And I'm going to give you the 5 most important steps. Step 1, name it out loud. The repetition, compulsion, and attachment patterns operate in the dark. They live below the level of conscious awareness. And light, the light of naming, of articulating, of bringing the pattern into language, begins to disrupt them. Start keeping a relationship journal, not about the other person, about you. After interactions that leave you feeling destabilized, activated, or confused, write, what emotion am I feeling right now? Where do I feel it in my body? Have I felt this before? How old does this feeling feel? What did I do in response to this feeling? And was that response about the present moment or about something older? That last question is transformative, because when you can trace a disproportionately intense response, a wave of panic, a surge of rage, a flood of despair, back to its original source, you have done something remarkable. You have interrupted the unconscious loop. You have introduced awareness into a system that previously operated entirely below your sight. Awareness is not healing in itself, but it is always the first step. Step 2, get the right kind of support. I want to say something clearly and without caveat. If the patterns we have described today resonate deeply with you, please consider working with a trained therapist. Not because you are broken, but because these patterns were formed in relationship. And they are most effectively healed in relationship, including the therapeutic one. And not all therapy is created equal for this kind of work. The most evidence-supported approaches for attachment and relational patterns specifically include EMDR, eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. Developed for trauma, it has shown remarkable effectiveness in processing the early experiences that drive adult patterns. It works at the level of the body and the nervous system, not just the thinking mind, IFS, internal family systems. This approach works directly with what therapists call the inner child, the parts of you that are still operating from their original wound. It is deeply compassionate work. Schema therapy, specifically designed for deeply embedded relational schemas, the core beliefs about self and others that drive repetitive patterns, highly structured and evidence-based. Attachment-based psychotherapy, which provides what researchers call a corrective emotional experience, a safe, consistent, reliable relational dynamic that begins to update the internal working model. You literally experience with your therapist what secure attachment feels like, and that experience begins to build a new template. Seeking this kind of support is not weakness. It is the most intelligent investment you can make in your own future. Step 3, practice staying when it feels boring. This is one of the most counterintuitive but important pieces of the work. For people with insecure attachment styles, and particularly for those drawn to the anxious avoidant dynamic, safety itself can trigger flight. When a relationship is calm, consistent, and drama-free, it can feel not just boring, but almost wrong. And the impulse is to create distance, find fault, or simply leave. Learning to stay, to sit with the discomfort of safety, is a skill. And like all skills, it is built through practice. Dr. Stan Tatkin, a relationship expert and developer of the PAC model, calls this earning security, the process by which someone who did not begin life with a secure attachment style develops one through conscious effort and consistent relational experience. It is not about tolerating a relationship that is genuinely wrong for you. It is about distinguishing between wrong for me and unfamiliar. Between we are genuinely incompatible and this person is consistent and kind and my nervous system doesn't know what to do with that yet. Ask yourself, am I leaving because this is wrong or because it feels unfamiliar? Step 4, interrogate the electricity. When you feel that magnetic pull towards someone, that click, that electric sense of recognition, do not simply follow it. Pause and ask yourself a set of questions. Is this person activating my pattern, or do we have genuine compatibility? Does this electricity come from warmth and resonance, or from unavailability and challenge? How do I feel in my body after spending time with this person? Expanded and calm, or contracted and anxious? Would I recommend this person as someone I love? What am I hoping they will give me? And is that something I should be giving myself? The goal is not to intellectualize attraction out of existence. The goal is to add information to the process, to bring your thinking mind into the conversation that your nervous system is usually having alone. Chemistry is data, it is not a decision. Step 5, grieve what you didn't get. This is the step that is most often skipped, and it may be the most important. The patterns we have discussed today persist in large part because the original grief was never fully felt. The child who needed consistent love and didn't receive it, that loss is still waiting to be mourned. The child who needed safety and got chaos, that experience is still held, frozen in the body to release the compulsion to seek healing through relationships. You must at some point allow yourself to fully feel the impact of what you did not receive. Not to blame, not to stay in victimhood. Not to make your story the story of your damage, but to acknowledge with compassion the real weight of your history. You are allowed to grieve the parent who couldn't show up the way you needed. The childhood that didn't feel safe. The love that was rationed when it should have been given freely. You are allowed to feel the weight of that. And in feeling it, really feeling it, not performing it, not narrating it, but embodying it, something begins to release. The open circuit begins to close. The unconscious search for the resolution of that old wound begins slowly to quiet. Grief is not weakness. Grief is the process through which old wounds close, because you no longer need the next relationship to heal it for you. We have covered a lot of ground today. You now understand the familiarity bias, how your brain mistakes recognition for compatibility and familiarity for love. You understand attachment theory, how the relationship between you and your earliest caregiver installed an operating system that has been running your relationship patterns ever since. You understand the repetition compulsion, the way the unconscious mind recreates old wounds in the hope of finally resolving them. You understand the love map, the internal atlas of desire and attraction that was built before you had any say in its construction. You understand self-verification theory, how a wounded self-concept will seek out relationships that confirm its beliefs, even painful ones. And you understand the neuroscience, why inconsistent love can be more chemically compelling than consistent love, and why your nervous system has been working against you without your permission. Here is what I want to leave you with. The pattern is not your fault. but breaking it is your responsibility, not your fault, because you did not choose your earliest experiences. You did not design the template. You did not write the program. You were a child, and children absorb what they are given, but your responsibility, because you are no longer that child. You are an adult with access to understanding, to tools, to support, to choice. And the moment you understand the pattern, truly understand it the way you do now, you cannot unknow it. And the next time you feel that electric pull towards someone who feels like home, the familiar chaos, the magnetic unavailability, the relationship you can already feel is going to hurt in all the old familiar ways, I want you to pause for just one moment and ask yourself one question. Is this home or is this just familiar? That question, asked honestly in that moment, could change everything. If this video helped you see something you hadn't seen before, share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe for more psychology-backed content on people, performance, and the full human experience. This is the Evolved HR. And I will see you in the next one. EvolvedHR.org Vertical Bar Books on Amazon. Vertical Bar YouTube, subscribe, Vertical Bar LinkedIn, Vertical Bar Consultation booking.